Hello and welcome to our podcast, Point of Inspiration, a podcast where five of us friends and family play D&D. My name is Kyle, and I will be the Dungeon Master. My wife Sachiko will be playing a female Goliath named Indra. My brother Tim will be playing a male Dragonborn named Alistair. My buddy Cameron will be playing a half-elven boy of 12 named Thalen. And lastly, my buddy Kyle, yes, sorry, there are two of us, will be playing a young man named Vargo. We all love the game of D&D, but aren't necessarily sticklers for the player's handbook rules. That being said, this will be our first ever podcast and my first time dungeon mastering. Suffice to say, we will most definitely bend rules and play the game to have fun, hopefully along the way creating an awesome story for you all. This first episode will be more of an episode 0 or a pilot episode to introduce you to the characters as they were introduced to each other. Normally, we'll jump into gameplay, but as we figure out the best way to create the story for you, I'll start off by introducing you to the characters as they set forth on their first quest. Without further ado, let's get into it. This story begins in the Kingdom of Asai. To introduce our first two characters, you must first know the half-elf Vargo and his temperament.
I'm like 5'11", but I would say 6 foot tall, half elf. I'm like kind of pale gray skin with jet black hair. That's like kind of short and just like morning muffed up, you know. Green eyes. I'm probably like I probably appear like I'm like 17, 18. I'm just wearing like dusty, old, like kind of not rags necessarily, but just like beat up, like kind of worker clothes. And I have a rapier on my hip, and I look unhappy.
Vargo is someone always striving to become a stronger warrior. He's quick to anger and quick to battle. So, unsurprisingly, his first days in the small city of Sundabar, as he sat drinking at a pub called the Second Best Inn, he met a half-orc whose mouth was much faster than their feet. The half-orc, Garrick, was flaunting his money and also his prowess in fighting. So, Vargo showed him the prowess of a foot in his ass. Unfortunately, later that night, Garrick's pride stung by being beaten. The half-orc brought back his friends with him to the pub and showed Vargo the advantage in numbers by putting a beating on him. As Vargo lay in the dirt outside the back of the pub, a young dragonborn lent him his hand in aid.
So you see a very tall, like probably like almost like 6'8", very, very tall, slender, silvery scaled dragonborn in a cloak, kind of just sitting at the table, glass of water in front of him, but nothing for breakfast, just kind of sitting there to himself. Wearing a robe or something with like kind of firm shoulders and a high collar, all gray over his silvery scales. When I'm sitting at the table too, I have like a couple of like gears and stuff in my hand, and I've got like a little tool, and I'm just kind of working on it. And like whenever I'm downtime, I'm not eating or anything like that, I'm just kind of fiddling with it. And then I just put it in the pouch.
Seeing the injustice at the fight between Garrick and Vargo, Alistair agreed to join the half-elf in his travels to ensure no such injustice happens again to his new friend. As our Alistair and Vargo first were introduced, so were our other two characters, two outcasts who had quickly become friends outside of Sundabar. One, a young boy named Thalen, who is running his own detective business right outside of town, and a Goliath, Indra, who is posted at the western entrance to Sundabar preaching the word of her goddess Ryu. Thalen, having come from little inheritance, is doing what he can to make do, solving mysteries in the town of Sundabar, while Indra, a follower of the goddess Ryu, was not given place to preach in the town without a temple of Ryu. The friendly, outgoing Thalen is quick to strike up conversation and quickly recruits Indra as a deputy, whether she likes it or not. Alistair and Vargo, both meaning to learn and train with someone, set out from the bar in search of strong allies when they come upon Thalen and Indra.
What you see is a woman kneeling, talking to this person, but as she sees you approaching, she stands up, and she is quite tall, 7'2". She's Goliath, and she has gray skin, black hair, and it's just coarse, and it's like roughly braided, like just like out of her face. She has armor, but it looks kind of like mismatched, like she's a big girl, and it's not easy to find armor for that big of a person. So it doesn't like necessarily match. It's kind of beat up. She also has a shield that's kind of dinged, and you see it on the ground next to her. And there's a symbol on the shield. And she also has a net around her waist, kind of like folded triangle style and tied around her waist. Even though she stands when you walk up, she doesn't like meet your eyes. She doesn't make direct eye contact. She just kind of is like ready for you to come approach her.
And as this big girl stands up straight, the small boy she was talking to turns around. He's wearing, what you would describe as common clothes, but they seem like they're a little bit tattered and dirty. He's also wearing a straw hat. On his side, he's carrying what seems to be some sort of a short gray beard. And he tugs on whatever is hanging off of the tall lady. He goes, Indra?
Mm-hmm.
I have never seen a costume like that, Nance.
Greetings. My name is Alistair, and
I'm Vargo.
what are your names?
Well, Alistair, Vargo, my name's Thalen Franzwaddle, boy detective. Maybe you've heard of me and my deputy, Indra.
My name's Indra Stormbringer Clan Nanui.
And you are his assistant?
I am, yes.
She's my deputy.
Deputy.
John
Why?
hands you a small scroll.
This is quite the card.
All right, is Vargo saying
Did you
that?
make this?
Well, I think my mom made it, but it doesn't matter. It's my contract, my rates, common rates.
As they're all introduced, they are given a proposition by an elderly woman named Ulfira, hoping that Thalen and his crew can solve a mystery for her. The woman offers a hefty amount of gold to the crew if they can find her missing dessert recipe.
But there's been some newcomers, Uncle Jix, and I would say that you are welcome to go to my house, which in my room at the foot of my bed is the chest in which I usually kept the recipe.
The newly formed crew sets off to the scene of the crime, Fira's house. As they travel through Sundabar to find Ulfira's house, they get to talking to each other, and a couple people ask a little bit more about Thalen.
Okay. So, have you taken on any cases like this before? Do we have an idea where to start?
Are you asking me if I've solved a dessert-based mystery before?
Well, dessert-based might be a little specific, but...
Well, have you?
Yes, I have.
What was
The case of the missing meat pie, I'll tell you about it later.
I think you said dessert. Hey, do you know how to use that sword, man?
This right here?
Yeah.
I sure do, but I refuse to unless pressed.
What about
As a
when you're
detective work to
practicing?
keep the peace. I'm sorry?
What about for practice?
Well, typically I practice with my deputies.
I qualify as that currently, as far as I know.
You sure do, but we don't have time for sparring. There's a crime scene to...
You're right. I just wanted to make sure that we could have some sparring later, because I've been looking for some practice, and it appears we have similar weapons of choice.
We sure do. You wouldn't happen to be a detective by trade, would you?
I am a swordsman by trade and a detective in my free time when it pays.
And did your mother also provide you your sword?
My father has provided me my sword.
Ah, very good.
Did your mother provide you your sword?
Yep.
Did she fight?
I think she's like mad.
I'll
Seems
fight
to
your
be.
mom.
What's your mother's name?
What a great question.
I thought of it myself.
Helena.
As the group gets to know each other, Phelan notices a fifth and final member among them.
What appears to be some kind of mechanical dragon.
What was his name?
Tidrin.
Tidrin.
As the crew gets to Ulfira's house, they are unable to get into the house due to a faulty key. The crew then decides to try out a mysterious shop that they saw right down the street called Rumors. In hope for some information, or maybe some helpful rumors, the group enters the magical shop and are introduced to Clarabelle.
And you hear a pitter-patter as a woman walks around. A half-elven woman comes around. She has a cowboy hat on. She has darker skin, fairly curly hair, goes all the way down to like her butt area. And she comes in, oh, I am so excited, y'all. Welcome to Rumors.
As Clarabelle introduces herself, we end our first session. Thanks for listening to our pilot episode, and I hope you'll join us for episode 1 of Point of Inspiration.